What's up, Pac-Man?
How you doing, man? Hey, everybody, I'm Sean Robinson.
I'm Carson Grubaugh. Welcome to Living the Line Reacts.
You got a nice, gruffy Cookie Monster voice there, man.
Yeah, I listen to too much heavy metal. We gotta like the Reacts videos are supposed to be over the top, right? So
Yeah.
what does Pac-Man sound like?
Uh, beep, beep, beep.
Okay. So anyways, welcome back to Living the Line Reacts. And today we're going to take a look at everybody's favorite, most popular mangaka of right now, Junji Ito. This is the guy that all of my students love so much. Have you read any of Junji Ito's work?
Oh yeah, hell yeah, I did. I used to. I was a subscriber to Pulp, which was the first place that his stuff was released in the United States. Viz had this. It was sort of their throw everything against the wall and see what sticks phase of their publishing in the early 2000s, and he had a bunch of stuff come out there. So they Uzumaki,
Okay.
um, Spiral, um, and the one with the girl who has a short bob haircut. Anyway,
May.
yeah.
See, that was
And
the first Junji Ito I read, and I thought it was just so I couldn't finish it because I thought it was so mean-spirited. And then the next one I read was Gyo, which is just like all about like farts and burps and tubes up asses. And I was just like, I can't with this guy. And then, someone told me try one more thing, and I've been reading his shorter stories, and
yeah.
he gets more atmospheric with his horror rather
Hmm.
than just gross. So I'm becoming a bigger fan.
Yeah, and he wrote what I think is one of the greatest comic stories of all time. If I'm wrong, we're going to have to edit this out. I apologize. I believe it's him though. Made a story where these people of a town start seeing holes on the side of a cliff,
Yes.
and and they become obsessed with the holes, and then one person realizes that the hole is shaped like them, which is
Yeah.
just the worst possible thought anyone could ever have. And the person walks into the cliff face with the hole that's their exact size. I mean, I just get chills just thinking about it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's collected in the back of the Geo edition I have.
okay.
So I hate the Geo, but I've kept it because that is, as someone who's like claustrophobic,
Yeah.
um that is the scariest thought ever, that you have this hole that you is so perfectly sized to you just wiggle your way through and get slowly. Yeah, that one's amazing.
Well, I think that distills something about what's so potent about his work is that he has found this thing that you didn't need to know that you could itch. It's like
Yeah.
he's introduced you to a new body part and encouraged you to itch it. I think when he does his work the best, that's what I get out of it. And some of the people that he was influenced by, which you and I will eventually talk about on this. I think that is you know I,
Yeah, absolutely.
Kazuo Mezuo has some of that too. There are parts of the drifting classroom that have that same kind of feeling to it. Like, this is what elementary school was like for me, and I didn't know it until I actually saw a scorpion demon tearing apart my teacher.
Yeah, and it's when he taps into those things that he's successful, and it's when it's just like grotesque for the sake of being grotesque that I have a hard time. But
Yeah,
anyways, I have watched this Monbin before. It's been a while. I don't have you.
yeah,
I don't know if you've watched this,
yeah.
but
So I've seen this one back when I had COVID back in December. Yeah. So here's his Name, his storyboard uh, of the page that we're going to watch him um, working on. I've never
yeah, and
read
we're
this
just gonna
comic.
watch. He works on like three different things in this episode. We're just gonna watch this one.
Yeah, so he's got his Name blown up so that he can use this underneath. If you've never done this before, this is an incredibly useful technique because the proportions that you're laying out on the small one are likely the best possible proportions for the actual thing.
Because you
And
can see it all in one glance.
exactly right. And tracing it out is useful to do. Yeah, they're talking about medical reference here, so obviously this person ripping off their own face, they're going to need um, they're going to need some kind of medical reference, and You know, they're talking about how they get kind of grossed out by something like that at first, but then afterwards, you can kind of get desensitized to it and start seeing it for what it is. Conquer that
And I
fear. You just need to stare at it head on for once.
And I'd like to point out, especially for younger artists, that when he is transferring this over, he is doing a new drawing on top with
Yes.
the Name as a map.
Right.
When I was younger and I would do this, I would kind of painstakingly retrace what I had already
Right.
drawn, and you'll stiffen your drawing up a lot. So this sketch phase is a map that should make you more confident about what you're doing. And now you see he's adding details. It's not every just like a literal translation of every line
He's got a kneaded eraser on his finger while
stuck
he's
on
working.
there. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
smart. And like some band-aids.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what that's for.
I did a few times during his video. I wondered if all the penciling was really necessary. Um, you know,
He's
yeah.
like
So
checking something out.
checking
Oh,
it,
he
he's
was
checking
he
it in
was looking.
reverse. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people will just flip the drawing over on the light board and check it.
Yeah.
That
So he's
will they're doing that to show like if the eyes aren't properly aligned or
right.
something like that.
Yep.
Just
Very,
proportion
very,
structural things.
yeah. Very easy to to see in reverse. You become habituated to those mistakes because they're your own.
Yeah, like if one eye is slightly lower or the pupils
Uh-huh.
aren't centered. In this case, the pupils are decentered on purpose to
Right.
make it look more like lost control.
Yeah. Agony.
Oh, I think he's asking him about the bands.
Yeah.
Are you talking about holding the pen? The really light grip, though. Homemade tools. That's interesting.
He's got a wipe hanging from his light so he can wipe off the ruler edge after ruling lines.
You know how I deal with that? I just have shirts that I wear just for inking, and I wipe them on my chest. I call them my inking shirts. So you think that with the Name alone, he seems to have enough experience that he could probably just go straight to ink?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not saying straight to ink. I wonder about all the lines necessary on the sort of musculature stuff here. Um, you know, but it's not totally tight pencil. It's not ludicrous or anything. There were a few times that we're not going to see it today, but the other video, the other page they show him working on in this video, he goes back and does a bunch of work digitally after the fact with white afterwards, and it just seemed totally unnecessary to me. If he had thought that he needed those things, he could have done it on the actual page.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that once you get that, and it seemed like it was something that was pretty new to him as well.
Right.
You know, once you get that new tool, you're exploring the possibilities. A nice quick line though.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
a real light hold on the pen. It seems like he's not really like when I try to get really controlled, I'll almost wear my fingers on the nib. I get so close.
Right.
And then again, for people who are newer to art, understanding that he is again now he's drawn the same drawing basically. This is for the third time, and
Right.
he's still drawing as if he's drawing the image for the first time. He's not tracing. He understands he's in a different medium. He's working with a much darker ink now, so the value relationships are different, and he's letting it just be the pencils are a map.
Right. Yeah, and that sort of cartographical approach is what enables you to have the best of both worlds, where you have a drawing that looks so free and lovely and lively, but also it is mapped upon a structure that is so strong.
Yeah.
Getting all those things simultaneously is, nigh impossible.
Look at that. Okay, first off, a second away from the inking. Lovely, just straight to ink gesture drawings. But that thing they're sitting on has a cat on top of it. Oh, it's gone now. Its tail was hanging down. That's just like a big cat.
It's a cat tree. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. They met at a cat. I believe they meet at a cat, not
Oh
hotel,
yeah,
like a cat cafe.
Cat Cafe. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, this is like a perfect thing for him because he is so descriptive of form with his line and he likes all the little ticky marks and hatches
right.
and stuff. Like this flayed man face is like the perfect subject matter for him.
Yeah, it's
Not
really
as
cool.
fast as some of the other people, but when he makes a mark, it's very confident.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he's got a pretty analytical approach. They talk about him being a dental assistant, and talking about maybe going into dentistry as his initial plan. I think he's got that sort of science approach to it, where there's a certain way that you do this, and this is the way that you build it up, and you know everything is very structured and scaffolded. You know,
Yeah. But unlike someone that would take that approach, you would think maybe, okay, you're going to do all the basic outlines first. He really is doing pretty finished drawing on like the most important part. So
yeah,
I think there is a bit of his approach too, where it's like, okay, I know where I want the focus to be, and I'm gonna fully finish that. So everything else that I develop will be to the benefit of that being as striking as
right,
possible.
yeah,
Whereas I think other people might be like, yeah, I'm gonna spot all my blacks first, or I'm gonna put all the contour of all the outlines and then add the grays. But like he's getting the veins in the eyes and all of that before any of the rest of it's finished.
right. He gets I don't believe we're going to see it here, but he gets sort of is a very odd exchange where the host tells him it's 3 hours for that. Quite impressive.
Okay, maybe I was wrong about the eyes because they've jumped ahead here.
um the he gets sort of backhanded criticized in the nicest possible way by the host, and basically says, I think your stuff is scary because of how slow you draw.
Mhm.
And he's specifically talking about the type of lines that are happening in that under portion, the lines that he was doing in the face that he established it with. This sort of like deliberate mark, and it's not actually slow. I mean, it's just slow in comparison to, you know.
Urasawa, who draws like
Right.
so fucking fast. Yeah.
I wish
What do
we had.
you?
I wish they
So,
showed all the spatter that's happening on the top there. You suppose
yeah,
he masked all that off?
and like this dripping here, that looks
Hmm.
like he dripped for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how. Yeah, it's too bad they didn't show that. So, like Urasawa's implying that there's a tenseness to drawing
Yes.
a little bit slower. That's
Hmm.
interesting. I don't remember that comment. Yeah, it's
It's
too bad they jumped ahead like this.
it's when they when they get the other page that he's working on. And like I said, I'm kind of just jokingly calling it a backhanded criticism. I actually don't think that it's intended as a criticism. I think he's just sort of trying to reconcile what he's seeing. Um, but yeah,
Well, in trying to describe, I wanted to see if they're showing him spot these blacks here. Just jumping ahead.
yeah,
I think he does like 3 or 4 pages on this episode. Because here he's drawing pretty fast. No, they skip over it. This is the one where he goes to the computer
right.
and like edits out some stuff and adds some more stuff in.
He switched to the thinner pen for this texture here. In the previous image, everything that we saw him doing was with the thicker, more rigid pen, and now we have the thinner pen for these kinds of textural details. This is another one of those really horrifying stories that seems like somehow true, where instead of actually getting older, the person is a youth trapped inside of the older body.
Blech.
It's just absolutely disgusting, and she like rips off her own body and sheds all of the layers at the last minute, and you can just tell he's just maniacal about it, absolutely maniacal. He's not done. He drew it to that level right there, and then he's going to go back in. Is not just going to add some screen tone or whatever, but he's going to go in with white, and you know,
That homemade keypad is awesome. He has all of his like alt
shortcuts.
keys that he
Yep.
needs. Yeah, like that is
There you
super
go.
smart. Adding tones. We need to get that Clip Studio Pro
Yeah.
that they use. I wonder too if that's so good for his posture though, the way that he's able to just allow his hand to rest there with that that homemade thing. It's so smart. Um like this kind of thing, because he's able to shrink it down, I wonder, you know, like that's just allowing him to go back to, like you were saying, it's so smart to work with the smaller layouts and then blow them up. This is allowing him to take the finished piece and then shrink it down to something more like print size, and then reassess his proportional relationships and detail density and values and stuff like that. Like something about that foot. And then here he's adding more detail. It's really interesting that he's so comfortable. Like, okay, I'm not gonna, there's not gonna be a discrepancy between the lines I make with the computer and the lines I made with the analog tools. Oh, there's the whiting out.
Yeah.
It is very obsessive. But yeah, I mean, like really informative. I wish they would have showed him being a little crazier with his like blacks, the brushwork.
Right. Yeah, I mean, presumably, you know, he filled it in somehow. That would be very interesting. But yeah, he's a very deliberate fellow, and yeah, you can see it though. Like he can turn on the speed when he needs it, and it's always in service of the mark that he's making.
Yeah,
but yeah,
totally.
I wish I remembered the word that you used. Not deliberate. Yeah, there's something about that. Spiral is got that out the wazoo. You know, you can just see it in some of those pages. I'm sorry, I'm calling it spiral. Is it called Uzumaki in English?
I think it's Uzumaki, where there's the spiral. That's all. I haven't read that one. That's the one all my students tell me is the best one. I've just been buying the new short story collections as they come out.
Gotcha. But that, I mean, that one definitely has a core of what he's talking about there, when the scariness is in the line, because there's this like tight kind of motion that he makes throughout that, you know, the concept is replicated by the movements that he's making, which I think is quite interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. And it like, it's the opposite of what I was saying. Like, don't do that when you're tracing over your, when you're using your image, don't trace, because that's what you'll get, is that like tints, like trying to not go off of your original line. And he wasn't doing that. But you could, yeah, like do that on purpose to make things feel tense and tight.
I'm not saying he does that all the time. I'm saying that he pours it on in the right proportions, you know.
Yeah, it's like any principle of art. They're not rules. It's just there's things that will make people feel nice, and then if you want them to not feel nice, you do the opposite on purpose.
Sure. Well, he definitely does the opposite on purpose, and I always find that it'd be very educational to take a look at his pages, and there's a ton to learn from. So this is quite the dive there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us for another one. I'm sure we'll get back to more Monbin, and I look forward to it for sure.
Have a good one, guys.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.